Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 decks for BRO2022 standard format, which is upcoming this weekend. If you guys need any help for BCS in terms of improving your game, hit me up on Metafy. My link is in the bottom right hand corner, metafy.gg/@Derek-Dow. I'll be able to help you hopefully get your top for BCS and even better, maybe a world's invite. So today, the first deck we're going to be talking about is Kyrie. Kyrie is probably one of the best decks in the format at the moment, especially after the restriction to Magnolia. This deck was actually already one of the best decks coming from the previous season, and now that Magnolia is gone, this is pretty much the next best deck up. So I do suspect to see Kyrie over the weekend. Kyrie is just a really good deck. Playing with the Friends package, being able to create massive rear guards, just plussing a bunch, going through your deck, has a top deck scry unit, and pretty much it's just everything in the one deck, everything that you want. Just an amazing deck, draws a bunch, and yeah, just gets the game done. Second deck that I definitely will expect to see is Gravidia. Gravidia is the second most represented deck for Springfest, behind Magnolia. And now that Magnolia is gone, a lot of the players might actually look into playing more Brandgate. And then a portion of the players will probably move to Gravidia, and then some to other departments. But this deck has been always good, even with Magnolia around. Gravidia is just super duper good. Obviously there are two variants, Pure Gravidia and World Gravidia, but this deck just does everything at once and pretty much is super scary, especially if they have the double trigger effect in effect. The third deck that we're going to talk about is Nirvana. Nirvana, with the addition of Amelia, is just incredible. You can jump from grade 3 to grade 4, pretty much before your opponent, regardless if you're going first or second. This deck was actually already really good in the BSF season. I think a lot of the Nirvanas who made the top 8 actually converted very well. So I definitely do see this deck making a huge impact at BRO this weekend, and definitely a deck to look out for. The fourth deck is Prison. Now, obviously with no Magnolia, you don't have to worry about end picks. So Prison will actually be one of the favorable matchups into Nirvana. So if we see an influx of Nirvana, so maybe bringing Prison might be a good choice for this tournament. Prison just outscales your opponent, just keeps prisoning stuff, and they'll be to the point where like you can't empty your prison, and then pretty much Pure Light just scales out of control. With the addition of the new Festival Collection card, this card makes it a little bit awkward for your opponent to guard, especially with the crit. So everything that you guard on this unit actually gets prison, which makes it so that the second or the third rear guard attack actually becomes bigger. So yeah, Prison I think is a very formidable deck now, and can just outscale because of, you know, the one bad matchup that it had is no longer there, which is Magnolia. So I do see a rise in this deck and a rise in Brandgate in particular come the BRO format. And then next is Bastion. As much as people say that, you know, the hit to Dark Strain will hit the deck, it doesn't actually do that much. Decks usually would just replace the Dark Strains, which here is running 4, into the boosting order. It pretty much does the exact same for the deck, except now you only get 1 Dark Strain. Other than that, I think the deck is just really good. Very aggro on grade 3, and it's just one of those decks that can just tear you apart without you being careful. So this deck is definitely one of the decks that I think a lot of people will bring, because, you know, those players who invested in Bastion in set 1 would still already have this deck, and especially those who are dedicated fans to Bastion would have upgraded with Bastion Prime. So yeah, this deck has always been good and will be good. Definitely a very high roll deck, but nothing that, you know, Bastion players can't perform on. The next is Magnus. So Magnus is a deck that we saw in the previous BRO, and I think it's still good now, especially with new additions like Brainwash Swirler that we didn't have in the previous BRO, Chagras as well. It's a count to 15 deck, and then pretty much you just ruffle stomp your opponent. Yeah, the deck just does whatever it does, and if you are not careful, it might just roll you out of the game. So yeah, Barrow is the 6th deck, and then the 7th deck is Sagara. Sagara got a new grade 2 which is actually not in this list because this is actually one of the older lists, but from Festival Collection, she got a new blue dragon, which essentially is a massive beat stick on a rearguard, and this deck actually got a lot of good buffs from that, just because the rearguards are now bigger, harder to guard against, and it just makes the deck a lot more beefier. I don't think this will be much represented as much as some of the decks that I'll explain in the next 3, but I do think that this deck, with the addition of the new dragon from Festival Collection, will make this deck formidable. So the next one is Bruce. So Bruce has 2 builds, one of them being the grade 4 Bruce and one of them being just pure grade 3 Bruce. I do think that the grade 3 Bruce, seeing the JP results, has actually seen a lot of impact. So we might see more grade 3 oriented Bruces with the inclusion of Marjorie, as well as the Festival Collection grade 2, which ends up getting, I think, 10k when it attacks. So we definitely will see a huge change in the way Bruce is played for this meta. And then the next is Flagberg. A lot of people have been throwing shade on this deck. I think Flagberg is probably one of the best decks coming into this format. Obviously, we don't have the PR yet, but I think this is the next best deck for Stoicheia. Unfortunately, Zorga isn't as great, I think, as compared to Flagberg. I think Flagberg just has a little bit more than what Grave Zorga does. But not to say that Grave Zorga can't perform, but I just feel that Flagberg, a lot of people have been looking down on this deck, and then those who actually play this deck will understand how good this deck really is. And then the 10th and final deck is Phantom Blaster Overlord. A lot of people have really caught on to this deck. I think this deck is very consistent, just does good at what it wants to do, and then yeah, just a stable 4 attack deck, and yeah, just does everything as normal as the deck can get. So I do think that there'll be a lot of Phantom Blaster Overlords because of nostalgia as well. A lot of people like to play the old stuff, and then PBO being that nostalgic factor deck, you will probably see a few of these roaming around for BRO. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the top 10 decks for BRO 2022 Standard. Good luck to all the players this weekend. I do think that this will be a really good ride for everybody, and hopefully we get to see quite amazing results over the weekend. See you guys in the next video. Peace.